I'm going to get me a big boom like you got there. Um, and a backdrop, man. I like your backdrop.
Thank you. Yeah, man. I thought I'd try to add a little bit of class to this thing.
Makes you look professional.
Well, good. That's the perception I want to give.
It's a good appearance.
Hey, you know what I've learned is perception is reality. It really and truly is.
It is. It is. And honestly, I believe that with all my heart. I believe that's part of what's wrong with the world is that people have learned that they don't want to learn to actually be good people. They just want to learn to appear to be good people.
I that might be more profound than you think it is.
It is true. It's. I think that's what's the problem is. People just want to learn tricks and hacks to appear to be who they want to be, instead of doing the work to becoming who they really want. In other words, they want.
Yeah.
Salesmen want to appear to be honest because they know it sells better.
I hear what you're saying. I think this is interesting. This is really interesting. I think there's two parts to this, though. The part that you just mentioned, that people do it because it's learned, almost like the Facebook culture, let's put out the highlight reel of our lives kind of thing.
Right.
But I also think there's another dynamic going on, because that's me, and that's how I would describe me, and that's probably some business professionals as well, the kind of fake it till you make it type of thing.
They do. And
I think that's not necessarily a terrible thing, especially if you can make it.
It's not terrible as long as there's just a difference between faked confidence and true confidence.
So, but that's not always a terrible thing, though.
No, I don't think it's always bad. I think it's bad when all you ever get is faked confidence and you never get past that. And I really believe that in our culture today, some people have learned that they can just fake the confidence and it'll be okay, and they never actually get around to developing real confidence, or they don't ever get around to developing real compassion or any of those things. I can think of...
Well, I think it goes deeper than that. I don't know that everyone. I don't know that you can make that blanket statement that that's everybody.
No, it's not. No, not everybody.
But I think there are people who genuinely want to be compassionate, but do not possess that skill and want to work on it. Like, I am by nature a pessimist. And does that mean when I exude optimism, am I being fake?
I don't think so.
I'm trying to work on my optimism.
I think that depends on what your intent is, right?
True. Yeah. This is interesting. We're jumping right into this thing.
I mean, I think if your intent is to deceive, then it is. Right? I think that's a bad place to be.
So,
but I don't believe that's your intention. So in your case, I would say you need to do that. Look, I know that I'm more introverted than extroverted, but just barely on my Myers-Briggs. But I also know that when I walk into a room and there's 1,000 people at a Rich Dad Poor Dad presentation, that I can't be introverted. That doesn't carry the room. Right? So on that day, I have to be extroverted. And I sit down beforehand and I remind myself that my arm motions, my animation, everything today's got to be bigger than I'm comfortable with. And so I exaggerate every movement, and I exaggerate my voice inflection. I exaggerate everything intentionally in order to motivate the crowd, in order to do what I want to do. Is that a bad thing? Well, I think that depends on my intention. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I'm there trying to get you to believe that Hitler's the next best thing that's going to happen to our country, that might not be a good thing for me. But if I'm trying to sell Life and Air that day and 90 people get into coaching and 85 of them have a great life 18 months later, I feel like it was okay for me to be extroverted. And extroverted, introverted doesn't have a negative, positive connotation, so it's an easy one to talk about. But when you act honest and you're not, it really depends on whether you want to be honest or whether you're just faking it to get the sale, right?
This is interesting.
So I believe with you, man. You have a good heart, and I've always sensed that about you from the minute I met you. I haven't seen anything to tell me that that's not true. But go ahead.
I was just going to welcome everyone to the AlaREIA podcast, episode number 69, that we just jumped right on into with Mr. Chuck Bauman.
Oh, I didn't realize we'd already started.
You know what? I wasn't going to start yet either, but this is so great. This is such great information that there's no way I can cut it out.
Cool.
So how are you, Chuck?
I'm good, man. I'm very good.
Tell everybody who you are.
I'm Chuck Bauman. I'm a Life and Air life coach. I own a small background check business, and I have a wonderful life. Is that what you wanted me to say?
As long as you're not trying to deceive anyone.
Not yet, man. Not yet.
Chuck, the first time I met you, do you remember?
Yep.
You remember the first conversation we had?
I do.
You do?
Yep. You were skeptical.
Oh, I was going to say the exact same word. I was so skeptical of everything that was coming out of your mouth.
I was trying to clean that up. I believe the skeptical was the best word I could find.
I was a skeptic.
I think in fairness to you, man, I came on really strong that night.
I think I did too, though.
Yeah, but I feel like I came on strong that night because I sensed that you were a strong person, and my experience has been that when you sit with a strong person that's about to go through the Life and Air 3-day, you have to shake them a little bit, to get them to even pay attention on day one. And I felt like I shook you a little, and you shook back, which was good. It worked out well.
On the 14th floor at the Hyatt Regency,
yep.
having a little dessert, and
yep.
Yeah. So Chuck is on the show for a lot of reasons. I think Chuck is absolutely, first of all, the life experience that you've had, the life that you've lived. I don't want to give away how old you are, but
I'll be 60 in a month.
I didn't want to say that. So by the time this comes out, you'll already have been 60.
Yes.
So your life experience, your story is incredible, inspiring. Where were you, Chuck, before? And I don't want to necessarily make this a commercial for Life and Air.
No.
But where were you before you joined up with Life and Air?
Dude, I was broken. I had previously done some great work with Covey and some other places, but I'd forgotten. Like most people, it worked so well, I quit doing it. And so I'd gotten away from my vision and completely put it away in a drawer. And I was going through a divorce. I was overweight. My triglycerides were 4,000. I was broken financially, emotionally, spiritually, every way a person could be broken, I think. And I met Sean looking for a real estate coach for my son, actually.
Sean McCloskey.
Yep. And Sean was doing a class in St. Louis, and Steve Cook was in the back of the room. And, my goal when I went there, I didn't know Sean had a coaching program for real estate people. At the time, he was doing short sales in St. Louis. And I didn't know he would coach on the side. So I went there to convince him to do that for me. And met Steve in the back of the room, went to dinner that night, and they asked me to come join the mastermind they were putting together. And I joined, and I didn't even know what I joined.
What year was this?
2009.
Okay.
I was going through a divorce. Like I said, it was pretty ugly.
Yeah. So since 2009, 9 years later, let's just fast forward. Where are you today?
Oh gosh, that's been a crazy story. I'm down to about 14% body fat. I'm completely off my diabetes medicine.
Wow.
I ran a half Ironman last October. It's a complete transformation. I'm not broken anymore. I mean, I'm still broken in my head sometimes, but not broken in the way I mean when I talk about that guy in 2009. I mean, honestly, Brian, when I talk about that now at the front of the room, it's like I'm talking about someone else. Like, that person is so far removed from my life today. I know now I could never go back to being that guy. It's just a complete transformation, and a lot of pieces there. I would say for your people that are on the call, man, you have to have a written vision of what you want, just like you have to have a business plan. It's crazy that we don't plan our lives with more detail than we plan a wedding or a birthday party. And you got to plan your life. You got to surround yourself with people you've heard me say this, slap cookies out of your hand, man. If you tell your buddies that you want to lose weight, my old friends would buy me cookies and take me somewhere for dessert. Now I have people around me that when I say, hey, look, this is what I want to do, whether they agree with it or not, they support that. And I think that's a big piece. And then this, man, you got to have a mentor. You got to have a coach. You got to have someone who looks at what you're doing and says, are you sure? Are you sure? I'm not telling you what to do, but gosh, that's not what I would do. I think you need a recipe. My partner, Jason Roberts, used to always say, you need a recipe. So I feel like you have a plan, you surround yourself with good people, you get some coaching from people that'll tell you the truth. A coach doesn't sit on the sideline. Well, you're a big sports guy. I know some people don't like sports analogies, but to me, a coach doesn't sit on the sideline taking notes, waiting for the game to be over to whisper in your ear gently, hey, you didn't play real good defense tonight. Here's 5 things you could have did better. In the middle of the game, the coach is standing up screaming at you. And I feel like that's the kind of person you need on your side. Someone that's going to, will build you up later, but in the heat of the moment, it's just going to scream at you and tell you the truth so you can hear it.
Yeah. So, Chuck, I want to go through, because I was going to ask you the question, you said you're so far removed from that guy, you kind of broke out of that, and you totally total transformation, totally different person. And I was going to ask you the question: how does one, if there's anything going on in their life whatsoever, whether it's financial, it's something personal, it's something religious, it's whatever it is, how do they break out? I was going to ask you that question, but you kind of just answered it, and you answered it by giving me what I wrote down 3 things, and there may be more, but I wrote down, you said you got to have a vision, a business plan for your life. You need a mentor, someone that's going to slap the cookies out of your hand. By the way, we need to make sure my wife listens to this, because I tell her all the time. She gets frustrated. She gets frustrated at me, and rightfully so, because I say, when there's nothing in the house to eat, dessert wise, I'm always like, there's nothing in here. There's no ice cream. There's no cookies. There's nothing. And then
it's by design.
And then she'll go, well, you always yell at me when I bring something in. And so like a week later, there's going to be like, the house is going to be packed full of ice, the freezer's full of ice cream. There's cookies everywhere. There's all these desserts, cakes, and all this stuff. And I'll just chow them all down. And then I'm like, why'd you let me do that? Why are you bringing this stuff in the house? So
that's a good point. I think one of the things that your listeners should realize is you have to go back to the point where you are strong enough to make the right decision.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not strong enough to make the right decision in the kitchen.
Me either.
That's not where my strength lies. At that moment, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So for me, I have to work backwards to a point of where I know I have enough strength, and it's at the grocery store. So if I don't buy it, I don't get tempted by it in the kitchen. Now, where I struggle, and where I struggle is because I will go out to eat a lot. Yeah. And I don't get to control what they have in their kitchen. And so it's that point of integrity, man, where they say you're going to have dessert tonight or whatever. And you need to surround yourself with people who, even if you just tell good people what your real intentions are, like, don't let me eat dessert tonight. Some good people will make an excuse for you when the dessert menu comes. They will say, "Oh, Brian, you look fine. You can have one dessert." And those people, whether they know it or not, are working against your vision of what you want.
Yeah.
And I think I like having people around me that'll, nudge me under the table and say, "Hey, man, don't forget you're a diabetic," or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Vision. I want to talk about vision and dive into that and talk about what that really means. Get a mentor. I want to ask why. I want to ask all the questions. Why do you need a mentor? What can a mentor even do for you? How do you even pick a mentor? And then the third thing I heard you mention, this is how you break out. You need a recipe. So I'm struggling with, maybe they were the same thing. Is a vision and a business plan for your life the same thing as a recipe? Those things go hand in hand, or is that different?
No, when I was talking about a recipe, I meant for what it is you plan to do. There's no reason for you to invent the wheel. By recipe, I meant, like, if you want to be a real estate investor, go to the REIA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
get some training.
For sure. So let's talk about vision.
All right.
Because I think that's something that gets, I can almost hear people's eyes rolling right now.
I know.
As we start to talk about this.
It's all pixie dust and unicorn horn and rainbows is what it is. And I know I get the same thing. Here's what I know, Brian, is it works. And it's so frustrating as a coach to have a tool in your hand that works and hand it to them and say, try this tool, and people roll their eyes at you. And they go, this is too simple.
Yeah.
This is too easy. But listen, let me ask you a question, Brian. What is 7 times 7?
49 all day.
And you knew that just like that. Now, what's 7 times 70?
490.
It took you a little longer. We'll come back to that. What's 97 times 113? Not a chance? Not a chance, right?
You want me to do the long?
I just wanted to show the difference in the 3 response times. Why was 7 times 7 so quick for you personally?
Times tables in the 4th and 5th grade, Mr. Heinrich at Lakeview, at an elementary school, Arrington Elementary School in Greenville, South Carolina.
There you go. So you don't just know, why you know. Because you had flashcards. And you looked at 7 times 7 equals 49. You've said it. You've read it. Other people have told you 10,000 times. Your brain has built a neural pathway to where that information is stored. And it has a little matrix that says, hey, I know where that's stored. Go right here. And your brain's able to do that in almost no perceptible time watching you answer that question. When I asked you what 7 times 70 was, it took longer because you had to go to 2 places. You had to go to where you stored 7 times 7. You had to go to the rule of tens, and then you had to put that together in short-term memory. Right? You believe that?
Yeah, I believe that.
That's exactly how it works, right?
I mean, if you're telling me that that's what it was, you're psychoanalyzing me to that point, then I guess that's what happened.
That's how the brain works.
It was a slight pause, though, Chuck. Come on.
Yeah, it was.
It was
97 times 113 would require a lot of mental work to get done. You would go to the calculator, even with paper and pencil would take you a minute. But I believe we could be on a call next month and you could know the answer to 97 times 113 just as quickly as you did 49.
Right, because I would have memorized it.
You will, and you will memorize it the same way by looking at it over and over and over and over. So when I ask you, you know the answer. That's what a vision is for the life you want. It's a flashcard, man. People believe that they can do anything they want. They tell their kids, they get all passionate about lots of techniques, but they don't realize you have to write it down for a reason because the research shows it works. If you write down that you want to do something and you read it every day and you look at it and you believe it and you feel it emotionally, it becomes the flashcard for your future. Because once you start to believe that you can have it, your brain naturally looks for ways to give it to you. You ever notice that when you go out and you decide you're going to buy a white Jeep because nobody else has a white Jeep, that after you drive off the lot, there are white Jeeps everywhere? They were there all along. You just didn't see them. And that's how the vision works. Once you write it down and you start to believe that you're going to have this thing, or you're going to become this person, or you're going to do this experience that you've always wanted to do, once you start to get that flashcard memory built into your brain starts looking for ways to make it happen. It starts seeing possibilities that didn't exist before. And I know we've all experienced things that were impossible and now are possible. Those are just things that we didn't know we didn't know. We believe things in our head that aren't true. And to the extent that we can take those things that are wrong out and put in a better truth, we have a different future.
Yeah.
That broken guy in 2009 believed 100% that he was never going to get better. And he did not believe there was any way to get out of those things. He had no money, just tons of debt, no income to really even come close to supporting that at the time. And there was just no way out. And what I wrote down was exactly what they told me to do. Just write what you want, even if it's impossible. And every single thing I wrote, literally, like paragraph by paragraph, was all impossible. I just did the exercise the way they told me because I was too weak and too tired and too frustrated to not do it. So I just did it. Mm-hmm. And what happened was I got all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it scared me.
Except for one thing, right?
What's that?
Except for one thing. Oh.
Yeah. I am single, if that's what you're asking.
That is what I was implying.
I know. We're working on that.
Yeah, I hear you. So you talked about the importance of vision, why you believe it's important, and why I believe it's important. I do it in a little bit different of a way, but I still have, I do it in, talk about this. I do it in the form of goals.
Okay. So I feel like goal setting by itself is not enough.
Why?
Now, I don't know how you do it, so you may be implying more than just goal setting. But what I find is I can set a goal to do something, but if it doesn't lead me towards who I want to become, what I want in my future, it can be just a goal to have a goal.
Right. So hold on, Chuck, talk about that. A goal to have a goal. What does that mean, and why is that not efficient?
Well, I think that it's easy enough to set a goal, and I've had the experience myself where I set a goal and I achieve it, and it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
And I think if you look at other people's lives, it's easy to see them doing things that work against what they say they want.
Say that again.
I said that when you look at other people's lives, it's easy to see them doing things that works against what they say they want.
That's huge. That's really profound.
Well, people will say to you, my kids are the most important thing to my life. And I say to them, really? Can I look at your checkbook? You know what I mean? Can I see your calendar? Because I know for sure if you give me your checkbook and you give me your calendar, I can figure out what's most important to you. Not what you say is most important to you, but what you do that says what's most important to you.
What if my calendar is full of all business stuff because I need to make a lot of money so I can support those kids and give them a great life? Then
you have learned to lie to yourself and believe it.
Talk about that. Why do you think that that's true?
Well, because it's so funny to me. I had a man one time whose daughter is an Olympic swimmer now. When she was coming up, we spent a lot of time together. And he told me exactly what you just said, that his whole mission in life was to have enough money so she could do what she needed to do so that at some point they were going to have a great relationship. And I asked him, she was like 10. Have you ever asked her what she wants? Like, I think she just wants you to come to a swim meet You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She just wants you to be at her swim meet.
Wow.
And we lie to ourselves all the times, and we blame it on our kids. And I was guilty of it, man. The reason I know it happens is because I've done it myself. We don't say, I choose to work late tonight. We say, I have to. Because it gives us, it feels better to us to tell our children, I have to work tonight. I have to work this weekend. I have to do this. But the reality is, life is about choices. Totally. And you have a choice. You could not work tonight and not make that money and go to the swim meet. If you said to your child every time you do that, I choose to work tonight instead of going to your swimming meet, it changes the context in your head. It feels way different. And we're all guilty. I think one of the things I think happens is when I start talking like that is people start saying, well, you know, but there are seasons of life where you're out of balance, right? If you just had a new baby, your focus is on family life, almost invariably. If you just started a new business yesterday, I expect you to work more, right? If your wife comes home and says she's leaving you, I expect you to be worried about your marriage and spend a lot of time on it. So I think as we talk about these things, life balance is, balance, people say like it's they talk about it like it's a static thing, Brian, like a place you go. Balance is very active, When you're standing on one foot trying to do a yoga pose, you realize that balance is not a place. You don't just get in balance and just rest there. It's a very energy, constantly adjusting. And I feel like that's what happens with your vision and your goals. If you have all those things aligned, is that you're able to see, well, I may be out of balance here for a little while, but that's going to allow me to do these things. But you don't. What I find is, Brian, if you do that temporarily, if you build your business up over the next few months, and you still spend sufficient time with your kids and at church and all the things that are important to you, I think that's okay. What isn't okay is when it becomes a way of life. And you see someone who starts out at 20, like I did, and works too much until they're 40. 20 years, the kids are all grown, and the relationship is broken at home, and now they have enough money that they could do something, and then you get a divorce. Yeah. That's just not the life I think we were meant to live.
I agree.
So go ahead.
Well, so Chuck, you're talking all this stuff about, kind of goals a little bit and then vision. Goals aren't necessarily, what I heard you saying is goals aren't necessarily what you think they are if they're not leading you towards what you actually want. Like, it sounds to me like you would ask me the question, like, why would you want to do that? Why would you even want to accomplish that? And it needs to fit in with a bigger, broader, vision, or not broader, but more in-depth vision for your life. And I've heard it said this way, the vision is like the roadmap for your life.
Right.
And if you don't have a roadmap, you're just, going all over. You don't have a destination. You're just chasing the next thing. So the question I have for you though, Chuck, is how give the people listening like a how-to. Like, how does someone create a vision for their life?
The method I like to use is to just sit down and literally turn off your phone, find someplace quiet, and write down what you want. And that sounds silly. Again, it sounds like pixie dust and unicorn stuff, but you've been through this. It's not as easy as it sounds.
It's very hard.
Most people will say to me, well, I know what I want. And I say, well, that's good. Here, write it down. And then as soon as they put pen to paper, something happens, because now they know, gosh, if I write this, once I write it down, it's sort of permanent. And it changes. All of a sudden, they begin to question, is that what I really want? And It took me a while to write my first one. But I think you sit down and you look at different areas of your life and you say, let's just take physical. Like, what would I want my body to look like a year from now or 5 years from now? How do I want to be? And when I wrote my first vision, Brian, just to give you an example, I said that I was going to be the sexiest man alive, because that was about the most impossible thing I could think of. I was 40, 50 pounds overweight, I had a double chin.
And look at you now. Now you're the sexiest man alive.
Well, I was going to get to that. I will get to that, honestly. But, I couldn't go up a flight of steps, man.
Wow.
Without being out of breath. I was just in terrible shape. And my triglycerides were like in the thousands. My cholesterol was horrible. My blood sugar was out of control. There's no doubt and so my vision of who I wanted to be was I wanted to be the sexiest man alive. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to be active, all these things. And I wrote that down. And then underneath it, I put the goals. And if you think about it, when you know what you want down the road, your first goal might be to have a salad tomorrow. You know what I mean? So that let's just take I want to be healthy as my mantra for that whole paragraph. If you write I want to be healthy as your vision, underneath that I might have a goal of like working out for 10 minutes.
Gotcha.
Today my goal is to work out to run a half Ironman. But the vision hasn't changed, just the goals underneath. So I like to have the goals aligned underneath. So when I say, well, why am I doing this? I can look above and say, oh, now I see how it relates to my life. It keeps me focused.
You said that there are different areas of your life, and you've used one example as the physical. What other areas are there that we need to consider?
Every program has different ones they start you with, but I feel like you just need to make sure you have, there's a basic spirituality needs to be in there. Whatever you believe, I feel like you need to get in touch with that. I believe you need your family, you need to have your friends, you need to have your physical self, your health, your financial life. I feel like you have an emotional, social life that you need to take care of. Intellectually, I feel like you're learning. And, there are a lot of different terms. We wear a lot of different hats during the day. And I think you need to cover the ones that are most important to you. Almost everybody has them in a little bit different order, but they're very similar when you really shake it out.
So we really need to if people are listening to this and they want to try to get in a quiet place and try to understand what it is they want, they need to figure out what they want in each one of these specific areas and maybe create goals underneath them to actually get to that and accomplish that.
I wouldn't set the goals until I finished the writing out what I want. I wouldn't try to do it in the same setting. But once you know what you want to become, it's really easy then to sit down and say, well, I'm 50 pounds overweight. I want to be the sexiest man alive. What's my first step? My first step is to, maybe get some different clothes or go to the doctor, and see if I'm even healthy enough to walk. I mean, you can set those goals underneath that then, and you can just start knocking them down. And I know you've heard me say this, but most of us think that there's like a dragon out there we need to kill, and then our life will be good. And I wish that was true, but it's not. It's not a dragon. You can't just go out and get healthy and be done. You don't go out and get financially secure and then you're done. You don't go out and build a great relationship and then you're done. You have to constantly work on it. And so there's still work to be done in all those areas. So if you don't have a tool that reminds you of what you need to be doing, it's really easy to get busy.
Yep.
Right? I mean, as a consultant who used to go in and look at businesses, I could walk through a factory floor and see that people were busy, but they weren't working. You know what I mean? Like there were times when we would calculate 70%, 80% of what they were doing added no value.
Wow.
They were just busy. And so when you focus on what's really important in your life, which is what you wrote down and then set goals under,
Yeah.
if you just do that stuff, life gets better way faster. It's sad to say this, but the easy way to get what you want is the way that your grandpa and grandma thought about it, and that is to earn it. And the way you earn it is one little thing at a time. You don't get 50 pounds overweight and as out of shape as I was in a day. It takes years and years of abuse of a body to make it look as bad as mine did.
Wow. Yeah.
And you don't get over that in a day. You get over that one decision at a time.
That's right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm preaching, so I did hear an amen.
I'm just gonna before we go. I want to talk about coaching and mentoring as well, because I think that's the vision is one part of it, and then the accountability, which I guess you could call it whatever. I don't know what you would want to call it, but the mentoring. What does that mean? Like what does that look like?
I think let's talk about mentoring and coaching. They're very similar. I think of a mentor as someone who's where I want to be, someone that I can emulate, someone that's done what I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. I think coaches are very similar in their feedback and what they tell you, but they don't necessarily have to be where you want to be to help you. Mm. Michael Jordan had a basketball coach, but his coach wasn't a better basketball player. If he was, he'd be a mentor. Right.
Okay.
You can, and I think I use them interchangeably, but I just want to make sure everyone understands that a mentor really is where you want someone you want to be like them somewhere. Yeah. They're doing something you want to do.
Right.
And that's who I would ask for a recipe, by the way, just to throw back to earlier.
Right.
So coaching is really to me about asking questions. It's so funny. I'll have a 1-hour coaching session with someone. At the end, they'll say, man, that was really helpful. You helped me a lot today, Chuck. And then I go back through my notes and realize I didn't give any advice. All I did was listen. And coaching really, in a life sense, is a lot of times just understanding what the person really wants. Because what they first say, person says, I want to have a big boat. You've heard the Sean story where he said he wanted to have a big boat. And you say, why do you want to have a big boat? And he doesn't know why. And after, kind of stumbling around for a little while, he says, well, I like to be the guy that provides fun. And, I want to be that guy. Well, that's what you really want. In the end, what he really wanted was not a boat. He wanted to be the guy that provides fun. And so as a coach, you're able to see that they've put something else in there that represents what they really want. Right. You help them dig down to it. Well, you can be the provider of fun much cheaper than you can buy a 58-foot houseboat or whatever. You know what I mean? And so those things tend to shuffle out in the coaching process.
So how does someone find a mentor or a coach? And what should people be looking for?
Well, one of my rules is, and I say this to anyone, don't hire a coach who's not being coached. You know what I mean? To me, that just doesn't make sense.
I think that that's spot on. Well, tell me why you would say something like that, though.
Well, I feel like if someone believes in coaching, if they really, really believe in coaching, they have one, right?
Makes sense to me.
I have a couple coaches officially, and I have several more that, we trade coaching. And honestly, I don't know how my life would not be progressing at the rate it progresses without those coaches. No. I'll say it that way. To me, I'm looking for someone whose insight and wisdom is not in necessarily directing me, but in leading me to the conclusion that I needed to come to. Yeah. I find the best coaches are not saying, Brian, you got to do this. They say, Brian, what do you think you need to do? Have you considered doing this? And you say, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. And then you're like, and they let you work it out. I find a coach doesn't tell you need to quit smoking, right? not a good coach, I don't think. A good coach would say, why do you smoke? You know what I mean? But
Totally.
if you want to smoke, I'm going to let you smoke, because it's not my decision. If you want to go buy a house that's not going to make you any money after we've talked about it, and you know that it's a skinny deal and you're taking the risk anyway, then I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you buy the house. I'm going to help you try to rehab it. I'm going to help you try to mitigate that. And if, you know what, if you lose money, I'm going to help you try to learn that lesson that I tried to help you prevent. But I feel like good coaches realize that it's your decision. You're the one that has to go out there and perform. And so they're around. I mean, how do you look for a coach?
I think it's really important that you pointed out the difference between coaching and mentoring, because those are really two completely different things.
They are. Yeah. In my mind, they're very related. But.
So I don't think I've ever sought out how you would describe a coach. And I don't, for mentors. And I don't think I have a coach. Okay. I don't. I can just tell you, not the way you've defined it, which I agree with, by the way. So I think, because you asked me how would I find a coach, I would answer the question, how did I find a mentor, and how have I seeked out a mentor? I did exactly what you just said. I found there are 2 or 3 people out there that do exactly what I do and what I want to do, and they do it on a national level, very, very big. And I don't want to do it on a national level. I don't have any desire for that. I want to dominate Alabama, the state of Alabama.
I got you. Yep.
And so, but I have seeked those people out and have developed relationships with them to try to do what I'm doing here in Alabama, not nationally, but how I can do it like they're doing it, but here. So I just seek out people who are doing what I want to do, and they're doing it better than how I'm doing it.
I used to, when I was first learning to speak, I used to chase speakers around until I could corner them, because they all say, man, you got to find a mentor. You got to get help. And I would corner them, and I would say, man, I heard you say like 17 minutes into your presentation tonight, you talked about a mentor, and I've decided you're going to be my mentor. And you could see their faces like, oh, I don't want to mentor this guy. And I would just hound them. I was relentless.
Yeah.
I would send them, handwritten notes. I would literally just be the guy that it was easy to mentor me a little than it was to ignore me.
Yeah.
And just like you, man, I learned so much from being around those guys.
Yeah.
Working for Stephen Covey, just seeing him occasionally was amazing.
Yeah.
And
so
I think you are being coached. You're just being coached by a mentor, right? Not that you might not benefit from coaching. You and I have had some coaching sessions where we sat and went through that. And
I've helped you out a lot, Chuck.
Yes, you have.
Just kidding.
That's why I put the hat on today. Because you had the cool Cubs hat on. So
that's hey, repping the Cubs. Hey, it's opening day. I know that people aren't going to listen to this for about a month, but opening day is just a few days away. I'm excited. But
I see my Cardinal flag in the background.
You didn't just have to destroy this podcast. I'm gonna have to completely cut that out. I think that just before we go, I think that's an interesting thing that you talked about, how a coach is not going to sit here and tell you what to do. But I think a mentor should, and should, because when I call them coaching students, but I'm sitting here trying to teach someone exactly how to replicate success in real estate. And it's step 1, it's step 2, it's step 3. It's do this, then do this, then do this. And and if something doesn't work, then we ask the questions. Then we try to get to the bottom of it.
You know what I meant? What I meant was, when you're working on your vision, and I'm coaching you to write your vision, I don't want to tell you what your life should be like.
Totally.
But when you say to me, "Hey, I want to be healthy," you think it's okay if I eat, 10,000 calories a day? Then I'm going to tell you, no, you got to quit eating cookies, dude. It doesn't look good on you. And like you said, there is a place and time to say to a person in a coaching relationship, I love you, right? and they say, yeah, I know you care about me. Then you can say, dude, you're fat. You're fat. Or, you know what? You're broke. You're spending money on stuff you shouldn't be spending it on. Like, why are you doing that?
Let me touch on that, because you could say the words, or a coach can tell the words to you, you're fat, but doesn't the person who's receiving that have to be in a mental state to want to change that?
I'll give you a great example of what you're talking about. I have a student we're going to call him Fluffy to be nice on the podcast. He's soft. He's soft. You know what I mean? He's just soft. He says to me, and he wasn't doing anything else, right? He's not doing any of the things we agreed to. I said, let's go to lunch, man. I need to talk to you. So we sit down at lunch across from me, and I go, can I ask you a question? And he says, sure. I said, do you think you're healthy? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, let's talk about something else then. And he goes, what? Wait a minute. Why don't you want to talk about that? I said, because you think you're healthy. I can't help you. You're not going to hear anything I say.
Totally.
And he's like, you don't think I'm healthy? I said, are you asking me if I think you're healthy? He said, yes. I said, no. I think you are in terrible health, and I worry about you. You know, you've got young kids and a wife, and I honestly worry about something bad happening to you soon. But if you think you're healthy, I don't have anything to work with.
Right.
And he was like, I think I'm okay. I said, just so you know, as a medic, as a former medic, I know that you're technically obese, which puts you into a really high risk category for a lot of things. I've walked with you from the car into places to eat, and you're out of breath. You are not healthy in my mind, but if you're healthy in your mind, let's work on something else in your life.
Yeah.
And, you know, it took him 6 months after that to come to a place where he's like, all right, help me.
Right. But
today he's making progress.
But you have to want to be helped. Like, I would say, just use me for example. I'm technically 30 pounds overweight. And if you were to ask me those same questions, I would acknowledge all of that. Do you think you're healthy? I would say no. Do you want help? Of course I do. I'm just in a place to where I'm really, just personally, I know I'm not gonna do anything about it right now. I'm just not. And
let's talk about that.
Let's not.
Let's talk about that for 1 minute. So here's what's interesting about.
I just opened up the can of worms.
No, I'm serious. This is a good topic. Most people have a keystone habit in their life that if they work on that one thing, everything else in their life gets better. And it's not the same for every student. In my experience, a lot of people, it is exercise and eating right. But for me personally, it's not. I find I can stop exercising and stop eating right. It doesn't automatically make the rest of my life fall apart. My meditation and quiet time practice is really the keystone habit for me. Some people it's saving money. Some people it's other things. But let's just take you, for example. My guess is that you don't do anything to make yourself healthy right now other than the things that you already have as a habit. So you're not doing anything significant to make your health better. My guess is also that if you committed to me that you would do 100 push-ups a day for the next 100 days, that would be 10,000 push-ups. Maybe you could only do 2 tonight, right? But if you did it 50 times a day, you'd be at 100. If you do that every day for 100 days, at the end of that, you'll be able to do 100 push-ups. I'm going to say maybe not all at once, but at least in 2 sets. You can do 2 sets of 50 and be done. In that 100 days, your relationship with your wife will get better. You'll be a better negotiator. Listen, I'm telling you the truth. every other aspect of your life will get better. And you know why I know that? Because confidence, real, true confidence in yourself comes from being in integrity with what you know is best for yourself. My guess is you never let anybody else down, ever. Right?
Of course not.
If you have an appointment, you're going to be there.
That's right. And I've got an appointment in 1 hour.
And if you say, yeah, I know, we got to get off. If you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it, right?
Yeah, I try my best.
Except when you make a promise to yourself. That's where most people that are listening to this call fall down. They will say, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, and then they don't go. They say, I'm going to eat right, and then they don't. They say, I'm going to eat less salt, and they don't. That's where they train their brain not to believe themselves. They would never not show up at the gym if they were going to meet me. But if they're going by themselves,
right,
they make an excuse.
Totally believe that.
And once you convince your brain that you don't mean it when you say it, if it's just me, then your brain doesn't believe anything you teach it. You've taught it to not believe you. And so those little things, like I said, making a small commitment and keeping it routinely really leads to more confidence in your ability to do anything you want to do. It teaches you sort of that thing that everybody says they don't have, which is the determination to stay after something. I'm not asking you to do 10,000 push-ups, man, because I can tell by your smile you're not ready.
Definitely not ready. I knew. See, this is why I wasn't 100% sure I wanted you on the podcast, Chuck. You're going to see.
Because now every REIA meeting, people are going to be asking you about doing push-ups.
Well, I haven't promised anything.
No.
But okay. I for someone out there listening to this podcast, this challenge is for you.
Very, very well deflected. I can tell you're a skilled deflector.
Hey, listen, I'll just say this. I think if you don't have a coach or a mentor in your life that's, even jokingly the way Chuck's doing right now, that's not in your life trying to help you and make you better at some area, if not all areas of your life, I think you're really missing out. I really do. I've never even really considered this until about 3 or 4 years ago. I think 4 years ago I got my first coach, and I did it for business purposes, and it completely transformed my business and where I was headed. I owe a lot of AlaREIA, if not all of it, I can't say all of it, but the majority of it to Sean McCloskey and Joe McCall, who just created an environment to where something like this could even be like thought of and executed. And then I wouldn't have obviously met Chuck without Sean, through Life and Air and everything. So I think it all comes full circle, and we are, if you really want your life and perhaps even your business to flourish, I highly recommend that you get in touch with someone. I don't know who it is. I think for me personally, when you choose a mentor, you choose a coach, you need to find someone who you mesh with, and that for me, it's a respect thing. Like you started talking about letting people down. I'm okay with letting people down, not necessarily letting people down, but like I have a hard time like not respecting certain people, and if I don't respect the person who's going to coach me, then it's over. It's not even a good fit to begin with. So you need to find someone who you can mesh with, and then just or who you want to emulate, or who is doing bigger and better things than you, and just go and just pester them like Chuck did.
Well, and I'll tell you, man, not everyone likes my style, and
Totally.
That's okay. I am more direct and more in your face than a lot of other coaches, even in our own organization.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You need to find the one that, that, like you said, is able to present it in a way you can hear it.
Yeah.
And that's the key, I think. A good coach has a lot of different little tools in their toolbox, and they can pull them out. But if you can't hear them, then they're not going to be able to help you. And it frustrates you, but it also frustrates the coach. I can tell you, as a coach, the last thing I want is a student who's not making progress.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So look for someone who speaks your language, who you can kind of you build a bond with, like you said, you don't want to let them down, and you feel like they help you see things that you couldn't see otherwise.
Totally.
That's changing your brain is what makes it possible. You did all the work to build AlaREIA. Let me be really clear.
Right.
You went to a group and you laid out your vision, sort of what you wanted to do, and people said, "Oh, gosh, that's so easy." And you said, "No, it's not." And they said, "Yeah, it is. Just do this, 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 this. But you got to change your mind about this, and you're wrong about this,
Totally.
and do this and this." And you came back, and now you had they changed the way you looked at everything. And suddenly it became possible for you to do this. And that possibility was there all along. You just didn't see it. And as soon as you saw it, then all it takes is hard work and massive action, right? Which is what we didn't get to here. But you can have the best coach in the world. You can be surrounded by great people. You can have a great recipe. You can do all that stuff. But if you don't do anything,
that's right.
You don't take massive action, it's not going to get better.
That's right. Couldn't have said it better. Chuck, tell everybody how they could get a hold of you.
My email is chuck@lifeinair.com.
And Life and Air is like the word millionaire, except there's a life in front of it.
Yeah, LIFEONAIRE.
Chuck@lifeinair.com.
Yep.
I think you spelled it right. We'll put it in the show notes. If you don't mind if people just drop you a little note.
I don't.
For no reason whatsoever, not necessarily you're signing up for anything. You just want to say, hey.
Oh, yeah. No. Look, if you wanted more information on how to write your vision, or if you have one, you want to send it to me, I'll look at it. Now, listen, I do live my life based on a vision, and I have a lot of rules about where I spend my time. So if you shoot me a vision out and I don't know who you are, it might take me a few days to get around to reading that email. I'll just be honest, because it's not in my vision to respond immediately. So I'm just being honest, but I will get to it and I will help you. Anyone that really wants my help, I'm willing to help.
Chuck is awesome. Chuck, you're awesome, man. I appreciate you so much.
All right, man.
Appreciate you coming on the call. Guys, subscribe to the podcast if you're not already. Rate us and review us. We love you. See you next time.
Go Cards.
What?
That'll be easy to cut out.
It got cut out right after. You can't. That's like saying War Eagle, which I can't even believe I said those words out of my mouth. It's like saying that on my podcast. You're not allowed to say that stuff. Roll Tide and Go Cubs is all that's allowed.
You can use that as your lead-in.
That's the lead-in.
I can even say Roll Tide. That doesn't bother me at all, see?
There it is, Roll Tide.